Hello, beautiful people. I hope that all is well in your world, and this day becomes a very, very successful day for you and all of your wonderful, wonderful, wonderful black loved ones. My beautiful, 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 intelligent black brothers and sisters. Know this. Know this. If you know nothing else, know this. Be true to yourself and try to espouse truths when your lips are moving. It is white folks. It is white folks. It always has been white folks. It is white folks now, and it will continue to be white folks as we go forward until all of us non-white folks organize, aggregate our tremendous influence, our tremendous power on one accord, and keep those white folks under control, preventing them from hurting us, from killing us, from marginalizing us economically, from disenfranchising us politically. That's what they have always done. That's what they are doing now. Since those white folks got together and decided that they would slice the continent of Africa up like a cake, that's what they did. They colonized the continent of Africa. And still today, some of those European countries still have tremendous control over the economic status of the African people that live in those countries that those white folks colonized. For example, France have tremendous control and input, financial control and input over the countries that they colonize, like Senegal and Mali. They have, the French have tremendous control over those countries. A country like Gambia, they are still controlling the economic growth, depressing the economic growth of those African countries and the African people, the black folks, people that look like me, that inhabit those countries. It is white folks that colonized. It is white folks that created the transatlantic slave trade. Do you realize how many black Africans was killed during colonization? King Leopold of Belgium killed 10 million Africans. And I will mention the names. The De Beer family in South Africa killed millions of Africans. Cecil Rhodes and the British killed millions of Africans. Millions of Africans were thrown overboard during the Middle Passage. Many Africans, people that look like me, were thrown overboard during the Middle Passage. My beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters. And do you know that 3 times as many Africans were delivered to those South American countries rather than to the Americas? 3 times as many African slaves was placed in South American countries like Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Colombia, Argentina, just to name a few, than African slaves were delivered to the Americas. And in the Americas, they created slavery. They propagated white supremacy all over the globe. All non-black folks have been socially engineered to a certain extent due to the white supremacy ideology, propaganda that racist white folks propagated, taught. It's like a pandemic. White supremacy is like a pandemic, my beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters. It affected the pandemic of white supremacy. Affected all non-black folks. And it still is today. Slavery. The brutality of slavery, the castrations, the murders, the dismemberments, the rape, the sodomizing, all of those things was done to black folks by white folks. It is white folks. It always has been white folks, and it always will be white folks. Jim Crow, after the Civil War. The Civil War was started, fought by treasonous traitors, white folks, fighting against their country, becoming traitors. The Civil War was about a bunch of traitors in the southern states fighting against their country. And after the war, they created the Jim Crow area for 98 years that enabled them legalize public lynching. It legalized systemic and institutional racism. Jim Crow legalized casual killing. White folks could just casually kill the black slaves for no reason, just casually. It was called casually killing. The castration of the male slaves, the rape of the slave women, the dismemberment of slaves, removing a foot, an arm, to disable them, so then they were less likely to run away, to cause problems, etc., etc. It is white folks now. It always has been white folks, and it always will be white folks. They are the enemy. They are the enemy. If you just look at mass murders today, who is doing the mass murders today? Who will take a gun, walk into a school building, and just kill massive amount of folks? It is white folks. It is white folks. It is not black folks that are doing those mass murders. It is not brown folks. It is white folks. Who are the domestic terrorists right here on this plantation called America? Who walked into the Michigan State House loaded down with long guns, automatic weapons, screaming and shouting profanity and propaganda at the Michigan politicians that worked in that Michigan State House? Who today is in Portland, Oregon, unidentified white folks, calling themselves cops, beating the hell out of peaceful protesters with batons, nightsticks, macing them, shooting mace into their faces for no reason. It is white folks that are doing that. It is not black folks that are doing that. It is not brown folks. It is white folks that are doing that. My beautiful, intelligent black brothers and sisters. There were more than 5,000 children taken from their parents on the southern border. That was a program initiated, planned, implemented by white folks. The Stephen Millers, the Donald Trumps, and all of those minions, lackeys that are white and followers of Trump. Our enemy is white folks. Our enemy always has been white folks. Our enemy always will be white folks. Who creates the legislation to negatively impact black folks, to deprive black folks from having the right to eat, to deprive black folks from opportunities, from successes, from earning money to feed themselves and their families? Who create the legislation that does those things? It is these crazy, insane, delusionist, evil-minded white folks. It is white folks. Now, it always has been white folks, and it always will be white folks. Even today, it is white folks that are trying to take the $600 per week unemployment that these folks, unemployed folks, are getting because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is white folks like Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, that entire Republican Party of white folks that are trying to take that $600 per week away from people that need it to feed their families and to pay their rent and mortgages. It has always been, and always will be white folks that behave like that. They do not have a conscience. They are void of compassion. They are void of empathy. It is not just Trump that is void of compassion, caring, and empathy. It is the 80 million white folks that are following him. They are just like Trump. They just do not have the courage to espouse it publicly. Trump does not have the courage, but he's dumb enough to do it. Trump does not have the courage, but Trump is dumb enough to do it. All it takes is a white person like Hitler to espouse the truths that millions of white folks are thinking, are feeling, want to perfect. And those millions of white folks will fall in line and follow that person that is dumb enough to espouse that publicly. Trump is the Hitler of today. He's got 80 million racist, compassionless white folks following him. I firmly believe that there is a genetic lack. There is a genetic mutation that encourage white folks to over-process fear, F-E-A-R, in their amygdala. That's a part of the brain. I believe it's pronounced amygdala. I believe that's the correct pronunciation. But it's that part of the brain that over-process fear, hatred, anger. They process fear, anger, and hatred much more than melanated folks does. Hence is why they behave as they do. Trump, his followers, Hitler, his followers, Mussolini, his followers, Putin and his followers, Pinochet and his followers. Just a few examples of dumb white folks that have espoused hatred, fear, and the genocide of non-white folks. And it's beginning to happen. It's beginning to propagate and perfect itself right here on this plantation called America. Have you noticed the excessive amount of hate crimes against black folks and non-white folks in the past 4 years? Have you noticed that the rule of law is being destroyed during the past 4 years? Have you noticed that Trump has methodically placed his lackeys to control the important agencies, the Department of Justice, the Department of State, the U.S. Treasury, the U.S. military. Hence is why now today we have unidentified, armed white folks beating the hell out of peaceful protesters in Portland, Oregon. Hence is why we have white cops that are going hunting on hunting expeditions in black community to find black folks to kill, because these folks that I'm talking about have an insatiable appetite for black death and black suffering. That's what I have on this one. Please go to LaThraciaWay.libsyn.com.